Hey everyone, this is Julian with Behind Company Lines here today with Alex Ghiculescu, co-founder of Workforce.com. Workforce.com is a workforce management and software technology company that helps improve time and labor for shift and hourly workforces. Alex, I'm so excited to chat with you, not only because of your background and your experience as an entrepreneur, but also, the whole kind of workforce movement is changing. And I think obviously everybody's privy to gig work, but I don't think we're that much kind of entrenched in the hourly and the shift in terms of time and labor and that type of workforce, which is so dynamic in ways that this workforce can be utilized, but also I feel like there's a lot changing in the space. And I'd love to get your insights and in kind of expertise and what's changing and how we should kind of expect the workforce and labor to be moving forward. But before we get into all that, what were you doing before you started workforce.com?
I was in college. So I was in Australia and living with some buddies, and we were drinking lots, and we kind of ended up starting a company to fix a problem that we had at the bar that we were operating, which was an attendance problem. And that was 11 years ago. And
Yeah.
I mean, I had like one sort of real job before that, which went for about a year, which is kind of where I learned to code. So that was pretty helpful. And
Yeah.
then yeah,
Yeah. What was the problem that you were seeing, when you were running the bar, and what was in particular kind of the catalyst for wanting to introduce some technology into the problem that you were solving?
well, we were running a bar and people weren't coming to work on time, and it was on a university campus. So it was like a pretty good
Yeah.
assortment of people working there. All good, but all kind of slack like us. And we needed to, all the hours that
Yeah.
people worked. And we went to market and we got quotes for $10,000 fingerprint scanners and all sorts of shit that seemed bad. And we kind of just thought that we could do it better ourselves.
Yeah.
And we knew that we could do it cheaper and easier and run it in the cloud, all this stuff that hadn't quite made it to the B2B workforce management industry in Australia just yet. So we did it ourselves.
Yeah, thinking about back at that time and when you were thinking about the solutions that were available, you talk about fingerprint scanners and things like that, but going to the problem in regards to just like managing a workforce and things like that, what was the main issue that you were seeing? People weren't clocking in, people weren't showing up on time. Was it hard to incentivize workers to be prompt and punctual and things like that? What in particular was it a workforce issue or was it a operations issue in terms of enabling people to keep track of time, but also complete shifts promptly and
I think like any sort of business technology that you implement is only really going to have like work if there's an organizational operational desire for it to work, right?
right?
So it's either going to make you more efficiently good or more efficiently bad.
Yeah,
So we had a lot of operational challenges
yeah,
with students running a bar to students work, but we've also like we're not really being helped by not having any technology.
yeah,
So I guess it was to answer your question, it was kind of both, but we didn't know any of this at the time. Like we just thought that if we made a time clock that was cheap, it would sort of fix a lot of problems, and it did fix a lot of problems.
yeah.
Maybe not quite the one we expected.
Yeah, yeah. What problems did it fix in the beginning, and then where has the technology gone now?
Well, I mean, the most obvious one is it fixed a lot of bookkeeping. Like we had to sort of figure out how much to pay everyone. And in Australia, what you pay people is a very complicated thing to work out. It's to pay. There's a lot of laws that go into it. It's based on a lot of situational circumstances. Um, So there was a lot of like people just getting a piece of paper and doing a lot of calculations each week. And by people, I mean kind of whoever was doing payroll, which was typically us. So it fixed a lot of those. We did a lot of those
Yeah,
calculations automatically, which was nice. I think like what we didn't
yeah,
really realize is we didn't really think there was a business there. We just thought it was like a gadget to fix a problem that we had. And then we sort of thought of more things to build and talk to more users or potential users. And it kind of spiraled out of control on that.
yeah, yeah. What was that initial discovery process like in regards to you've had this product, it works within your environment, but now looking to test it or looking to have others use the product so that you can see kind of its viability in the market. What was that process like, and were you seeing that your customers or future customers had the same problems, or were the problems slightly different, and were you building kind of towards those once you realized people would adopt the technology?
So I wrote a little story about this a little while ago, which maybe we can share in the show notes or something. It was kind of about the idea that there was a bunch of technological waves that we were riding. And so
Yeah.
people were trying to sell us fingerprint scanners that cost $10,000. And in the last year, I don't know if you, like before the iPad, I don't know if you remember like the Android tablets, like the Nexus tablets that was trying to make popular, and no one liked them because iPads were much better. But for us, we kind of had this idea that we could buy a $200 piece of hardware with an internet connection and set it up so it only runs a single app, which is just an app where you can punch in and out of work. And for $250, you've got a replacement for a $10,000 device, and then all the software can run in the cloud. And today, this just seems so evident, like how what you wouldn't make B2B software any other way. But like 11 years ago in a backwater country, this wasn't really the way people thought. So we kind of rode this wave of like people were just discovering the cloud. Hardware was just becoming cheap enough. Mobile internet was kind of prevalent enough. Half our customers didn't have Wi-Fi, and we could give them a SIM card. And so we kind of like all those things combined. And so in terms of, to answer your question then, like we had a strong intuition that we weren't the only people who didn't want to pay tens of thousands of dollars to scan fingerprints, which don't even work that well. Just like in terms of how to find them, we hustled a lot of people that we knew. Like we knew someone who ran a company that did like custom scanning. So we like kept asking him until eventually he tried it out. We sent a letter to every supermarket in the city, and then one supermarket got back to us. So sending people letters doesn't well in my experience. We just tried whatever we could to have anyone talk to us until we kind of got the flywheel of word of mouth of our website.
Yeah. And thinking about like the workforce and this whole kind of hourly model of work, has that changed at all in regards to how people are associated with work? And is it that people, one of the questions I had going into this episode was, are people kind of shifting towards having multiple jobs and then, employers have kind of a larger pool of employees? I assume on college campuses, people have different schedules. You kind of have to have a larger pool of employees to make sure times are covered. Is that still the case, or are people looking for more long-term, employment and consistent employment, today?
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in the gig economy. Well, I think like what the original ideas of the gig economy were of like, you have a car and you can drive for a few extra hours, or you have a house and you can rent out a room when you're not home. Like I think those ideas have some merit. The idea that it now is becoming a place that you can work full time and make a living out of, I think is kind of, it's taking a lot of stuff that we've learned as a society and throwing it in the bin and starting fresh, which I'm not sure is a good idea.
Yeah.
So like from what I've seen, I think most of our customers are companies that employ people who work by the hour, and our end users are both the managers and the employees. But from both sides, I think what people want most is to get paid as much as they can, obviously, but then stability. And so I think I think particularly it's surprising how many of these industries people do make careers out of. Like if you grow up and go to college as a software engineer, like I did, and maybe like you did, you would never consider the idea of like hospitality being a career. And even childcare is one that like you're subconsciously aware of, but never think about it. There's a lot of like, it's easy to think of hourly work as just like that stepping stone to a real job, which I think that's actually kind of really insulting. And it's not representative of the society that we actually live in. So I think the thing that's something that I've learned through doing this that I'm trying to tell more people is that there are like most of the people who are using our software, it's like, it's their career. It's what they don't want to be juggling 3 jobs, doing 3 different things until somehow the circumstances change. And they don't want to be told to go to a coding boot camp. Like to be clear, many people, like there's a lot of, high school, university students on our platform, and a lot of them are kind of, this is a stepping stone, but there's also an equal number of adults or people who have sort of picked this path. And in general, I think it's always surprising to be reminded of how few people have multiple jobs. outside of very bad cost of living areas. Like I'm in Colorado now, D-town. So yeah, lots of people here have multiple jobs. It's kind of how things work around here. You know, in a more like
Right.
in a more livable place, it's not really the case. It's not something people want.
Right. 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 And thinking about, workforce.com, and I was reading in about your company and also, you know, you bootstrapped the company for 11 years and obviously that's just impressive because as we know, that encapsulates the huge boom of VC money that was available pre 2020,
Mm.
and there was such
There's a lot.
yeah, there was such a thirst for the next best kind of product. How did you kind of mentally stay away from, jumping into gaining some huge, earning, excuse me, raising some, large amount of capital, starting to scale in different parts of the business? What made you stick to your guns of bootstrapping? And then I know recently you've kind of been more into the funding space, and I think you raised a certain amount recently. What was the catalyst for then going and raising money and starting to grow the business in a different way, or was there something in particular that you saw that needed to scale?
Still no money raised. Still
Yeah.
just
Okay.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But people like Julian. We have there's 4 co-founders and we all lived together for a long time. So we're pretty like good at arguing. And I think we would just like never agree on anything.
Yeah.
Um, but I was fortunate in the sense that like I worked with the other guy. I'm from a software background. The other guys more of a spread in business background, finance background, and so forth. And they had a pretty firm conviction that like the best way to operate a business that, on your own terms, long term, is to own all of it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's proven to be like, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
Whereas I was more prone to buying into the hype.
Yeah.
So I kind of I was lucky to follow their judgment and to trust their judgment on it.
Yeah.
And they were right.
Yeah.
I think, starting in college made it easier because we had no expenses.
Sure.
Like we were pretty used to living cheap. We could kind of just grind our way to a point where we could pay ourselves a little bit and then sort of just let that grow.
Sure.
But if I was to do it today now like I've got kids and stuff, it's kind of different. So I don't know exactly how we do it, but we've kind of got this opportunity now to keep doing this thing that's working. It's working really well.
Yeah.
But it's an option. I think like people just assume that people assume that you need to raise money because you need to build a team, because you need to do a lot of stuff in the early days. And I kind of think something that we got right was we figured out that the less people we had in our company, the more we'd be able to actually build the right product, service customers really well and so forth. And we kind of just didn't hire anyone for quite a long time until it was too much. And
Sure.
that was hard for a little while.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the flip side is we got really, really good product. Like we understood the customer exceptionally well. And then when it was time to hire, it was like, there was a lot of things that had a playbook kind of ready to go that we could just put people into,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty different to what you see many companies doing.
Right. And it's so crucial in terms of, when you have that playbook, when you have that roadmap assigned for that individual you bring on, for them to execute. And it's so efficient in terms of when they're on board and executing, but it all kind of hinders on finding the right people. And talk about that process. And you worked with such a tight team for 11 years or however many years until you started growing the team out. What was it like trying to find another crucial piece of your company, a crucial team member? How was that vetting process? Where did you go find that talent? And is there anything that you would do differently?
Well, we mostly hired our friends out of uni, and I think that worked pretty well because we hired people that we had known for a long time and we knew we could trust and we knew would tolerate us, which I think was probably the most important thing. Actually, at the time, I didn't think that was the most important thing, but that's definitely with the benefit of hindsight. And that's gone really well. Like, I was looking at the numbers for this a little while ago. I was doing some writing about it, but like, I think of our senior leadership now, we're in 3 countries. It's got a fair bit of senior leadership. We've got 150 people or something in total. I think at least more than half of our senior leadership are people that went to uni with us or are old friends or like went to high school together and stuff like that. So with those people, we kind of found a person and then figured the role out in a lot of cases. And I think that the role has kept changing constantly, which it
Yeah.
does over the course of 10 years. But I think that's worked really well. And it is
Yeah.
repeatable. Like, I think I don't know. I talked to a lot of companies now. I've started trying to do a little bit of investing on the side, just for kicks. And people are very hesitant to hire, like to bring in people from their personal life into their work life. And I get it. Like there's meant to be a balance, right? But like
Sure.
the counterpoint that they're doing is they're trying to like meet someone, do a 1 hour interview, and then commit to this person for years and years and years with their most valuable asset and with their life's work. And to me, that just seems like really risky. Like it's pretty easy to
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So hiring our friends for
Right.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. And in thinking about, you're building the team, you're scaling, you're growing. And, one thing as founders is, thinking about bootstrapping, this whole concept, one side it's very glorified, the other side it's like, you're an idiot if you don't go and raise money and go and scale and grow a team. But done right, I think bootstrapping can be so powerful, like you said, to find your product market fit, to know your customers so well, and to really have a product that serves the need that you're looking to serve. And what are the mechanics that go behind running an efficient kind of bootstrap team? And what are some things you learned along the way that didn't work out when you were kind of creating a really efficient process around, the company that you were growing? What some things that really worked well, and what are some things that when you tested them, ended up not being, so valuable?
I mean, I kind of felt like an idiot in 2021 when the market was at its peak and we were just not taking any of that. So I could see the appeal. But it worked. I mean, now I don't feel so bad. Um, I
Yeah.
sorry, I mean, that was like really a tangent question. I think probably the thing
Or-
we did best early on was like one of the co-founders is from an accounting background and he's very good at Excel. And we just got very good at budgeting. Well, we didn't get good at budgeting, but we got very good at least recording all our expenses and categorizing them. And then we just tried to be really disciplined about not spending more than about 105 to 110% of revenue was kind of the target threshold.
Yeah.
So we're a SaaS product, but customers pay monthly or annually. When they pay annually, they pay up front, and we give them a little discount, but we can spend most of the money right away, which means that you can spend it, which means as long as you keep selling, you can spend more than you are bringing in. What we've done badly is when we've got a bit too addicted to that idea and got to like 130, 140% spend. Which is, I think we're sitting around 130 when COVID hit and half our customers are in hospitality. So that was pretty scary.
Wow.
We had to figure out ways to cut costs really quickly. But, in general,
Right.
I think like you can really, again, the VPs will tell you should spend 200% or they won't even think about it as a revenue percentage. I think even just thinking about your spending, as a ratio to your monthly recurring revenue is very empowering because it does go up each month. So you always have a little bit more that you can do. You can make a new hire, you can do a new campaign or whatever, but it kind of forces you to be disciplined about like whatever ratio you've decided is correct. Got to stick to it somehow.
Right.
And I think we sort of been doing that from a very early stage. I think that's been very helpful. And as you grow, it doesn't get easier, but you can kind of see that each month you've got a little bit more opportunities or more optionality of what you want to do with the new revenue that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, the traction. Obviously, you workforce.com has been around for 11 years. What's been excited about the growth you've had up to this point? And what are you particularly excited about the next step in workforce.com and what you're looking to do and how to service your customers? Tell us a little bit about the traction and also kind of the future prospects of what you're working on.
Well, we've got kind of hard to get an exact number. I think we've got about 7,000 or 8,000 customers worldwide. So about half, or a little over half are in Australia, and then in the US and the UK, and then there's a few other long tail markets, but those are the main ones. And the first 10 years was just kind of about, our core job to be done, we realized recently, was just getting people paid correctly, which sounds super trivial, but it's hard, particularly in those countries. we've got pretty good at that. I think what the next 10 years kind of brings, which I'm excited about, is we've just had one product the whole time. And I think that's been good, like for focusing and for sort of doing that one product really well. I think now the opportunity is that we kind of have I think we've probably got the right team and the right base upon which to build a lot of products in the same sort of space. So like, we know we traditionally have just done scheduling and attendance tracking and then integrated with a bunch of other systems. And now it's kind of like, we've probably got a lot of these systems aren't really designed for frontline workforces. So there's there's so much software designed for software companies. We think we can do a better job in a lot of these cases of sort of doing our own take on it that sort of works really well just for our particular segment of customers. Probably the more funny answer is we want to think about how we can use AI in our product, but I think everyone just says that, and we'll see in a few years if anyone actually knows what that means. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Sold, yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face today?
I think it depends how deep you want to get. The biggest challenge is to sort of keep it interesting, right? Like you could become the thing about SaaS that's so powerful as a business model, which is why it's worth so much, is because you can keep it this, like, you don't need to win your current customers back each month. So you're always revenue is always growing with relatively little work. It's all gravy. But then the trap that so many companies fall into is that they just get addicted to being a sales company, and all they're doing is try to sell more each month and hit quota, and the product doesn't change. Because it's like, it works and the customers stick around because it solves a problem for them. And it's kind of like, it's a cash printing machine. But, and I mean, it sounds ridiculously privileged to say so, but at a point in time, that stops being that exciting in and of itself. Once you've met your needs and stuff, so to your point, the challenge, I think, if we had to do this for 10 more years, is how we make it really interesting. And I think, to me, what makes it really interesting is building new products, finding new ways to solve problems that are better than anyone else has done it, which comes from understanding our customers better than anyone else does. And what makes that challenging is we're a big company. So it's not like when it was just the four of us in a room, if we decided that we were building something, then it was therefore done. Like, there's a lot more that goes into it now. And I think for me, it's a constant battle of not becoming overly bureaucratized and sort of keeping that agility and that ability to do things. But kind of, I've got a lot of people on the team who quite rightfully point out that we need to not screw over the existing customers in the process. So it's keeping that balance, and that's hard. I think, I don't know of anyone there's some companies are good at that, but no one's great at it that I know of in this space. I think a lot of companies just opt out of this whole decision and instead just decide to become really good at selling what they have. And that's a path to becoming very rich, but it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not disrespecting anyone who does that, but it's not really for me.
Sure. And if everything goes well, what's the long-term vision for Workforce?
Well, the nice thing is we own it, so we don't need to change. Like, there's no pressure to sell it. There's no pressure to list it. Like, the biggest pressure is to increase everyone's salaries aggressively, which which I think is a great idea. So, I'm not sure. I think we've got lots of ideas about stuff to build and how to run the company better, all those sorts of things. But in terms of end game, I don't know. I kind of think I think business is a game that never ends, right? So you can kind of just keep doing it until you actually don't want to. And then at that point, there's always some other option. Like, I'm sure someone else would be happy to take it off our hands if they really wanted to. I'm not too worried about that.
Sure. Yeah, I always like this next section. I call it my founder FAQ. So I'm gonna hit you with some rapid fire questions, and we'll see where we get. But first question is, with all this talk, I think we've heard it for many years, and we'll hear it, as AI kind of grows. But this whole idea of this automated workforce and that changing the paradigm of people and kind of replacing jobs, and this whole idea. Have you seen a lot of companies move in that direction, or is this whole automated workforce kind of idea a little bit inflated with, new technology trends and things like that? Would love to hear your opinion on that.
Everyone's seen the robot that makes coffees, like that sort of stuff. I think there are certainly some frontline jobs that could get disrupted. I'd be much more worried if I was a lawyer or an accountant, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think lawyers are fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think people who talk about this forget how many industries they are, and they just don't consider they don't think about. Like, if you have a 3-year-old and you want to put them in daycare, do you want AI taking care of your kids? I don't. That's a big industry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those.
What's the, I guess in your mind, what's the biggest challenge with, about growth? What's something that while you were growing and scaling the company that, you are better at now, know now, have more knowledge into, but wish you knew earlier on as a founder?
Don't do enterprise sales.
Yeah. Why is that?
I can elaborate. That's the short answer. It's it's the most competitive space. It's the hardest customers to work with. The checks are bigger. Like, it's appealing,
Sure.
but it's very like all things in life. It's easy to think about the revenue and not think about the costs.
Yeah.
And that's particularly true for enterprise. So I mean, maybe not don't do it ever, but I wish we had waited a little bit longer and done it so that we had the maturity a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. What's particularly hard about your job day to day?
I have the best job in the world, man. I think that would be quite difficult to answer, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. What's something I guess you spend maybe not a majority, but more time on it than you would like to spend? And what would you like to spend more time on that you don't have enough?
Yeah. Because we're a kind of a weird company in the sense that we really like offices, but we're split between different countries. So we have like a weird hybrid setup. We spend a lot of time communicating with what's going on between different regions. And that's really necessary. And I don't begrudge it. It's not really something I'm good at. So I wish I could do that less. And I probably am doing that less these days than I was a year ago. Got found people who are good at it and let them. I wish I could just spend more time building things from scratch. I think that's kind of, I want to do a little while anyway.
Yeah. 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 I always like to ask this question because I love how founders extract knowledge from anything that they ingest. And so whether it was early in your career or now, what books or people have influenced you the most?
The most practical book was Behind the Cloud by Mark Benioff, which is the Salesforce founder. It's like an internal book for Salesforce, but it's very good. The most inspiring book, I think, was one called In the Company of Giants. I don't remember who it's by, but it's by these Stanford researchers, and they interviewed a bunch of tech founders in it must have been the early 2000s, I think. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you take from that one?
Well, I just these people aren't smarter than you or me. They've just probably been more committed. They've been really good at focusing on one thing, and they're probably much better articulating what they believe in than most people are. But it can be done. That was one takeaway from it.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a while since I read it, but that was
Yeah. Yeah. The tangibility of actually being able to build something and work on it and get customers is not too far off with that focus, with that commitment, and with a little bit of just I don't know if it's stubbornness, I don't know if it's optimism, I don't know what word you place on it, but it's this persistence of it that you see in a lot of founders. I don't maybe all founders. I think is this persistence to either get a question answered or solve a problem or talk to a customer, or learn more about their customer. It's prevalent in so many different ways. And
totally. A little while ago, I went and found all of our paychecks from the early years, how much we paid ourselves. And you can kind of draw a graph and it grows like that.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link if you share it with listeners.
Please do.
But yeah, it's if you're willing to, there's a lot of things where if you just do the same thing for 5 years, I think you'll get a good outcome. But those 5 years can be kind of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, persistence thing is definitely key, but you usually persist on the right thing.
Right.
So there's obviously more to it than just that. There's luck and there's all sorts of stuff that goes into, I guess, growing a company.
Yeah.
But my big takeaway was like, I didn't read this book and come away from it being like, man, if I knew these people in person, they would just be like so much smarter than me that we're speaking a different language.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's empowering.
Yeah. I know we're coming to the close of the
Yeah.
episode here, but I always like to ask this question to see if we missed anything or see if there's anything that we left on the table here. But is there any question that I didn't ask that I should have, or that you would have liked to answer?
Should have prepared for that one earlier. No, I don't think so. I think we covered a fair bit of stuff there. One thing that I have been doing recently that maybe is interesting, I don't know, is like we had a bunch of we had some former employees and some friends and stuff who started companies. And like I said before, when we started, we were in college, 0 expenses. These days, kind of different. So we've been doing some really light angel investing on the side just to help out people that are doing stuff that we kind of can add value to and understand. So I've been finding that pretty interesting. I think I've been learning a lot from the investment side. And to an extent, it's really solidified my opinion that not taking money is ideal. But it also made me realize that kind of real life can get in the way, which was a good lesson.
Right.
But no, it's been
it's been fascinating to hear that perspective from the angel investor side, which is you bootstrapped it. You haven't necessarily taken money for your own business, but helping others and seeing the challenges of a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of external factors that like you said, life gets in the way and kind of needs it, whether it's interjection of cash or mentorship or partnerships or what have you. There's a lot of resources that sometimes are needed to continue pushing whatever mission founders on.
Yeah, totally. I've been talking to a lot of people who are like, I really want to do this, but I just need to get my wife or husband to let me. I think that's very different to like, I need to hire 10 engineers and make a business plan and stuff that like, those are terrible ideas. But I think getting your spouse on board is pretty good generally.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Alex, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you and not only learn about what you're working on at Workforce, but kind of how you view growing companies. And I love the introduction to angel investing and what you've seen from your perspective. And last little bit, I always like to give my guests a chance to share us your links and share us your plugs. Where can we find you as a founder and support you and what you're working on, but also workforce.com? And if I'm a prospective customer, where can I find and start playing with the technology? Give us your LinkedIn's, your website, anything that we can find to support you.
If you want to learn more about workforce.com, you can go to workforce.com and you will find anything you need there. My name's pretty unique, so if you Google it, you'll find me. The thing I'm most excited about is I've been doing a lot of blogging lately and trying to write up some of the stuff we learned from the early days. So if we could share a link to my Substack in the show notes, it's just my last name, .substack.com. Thank
you so much, Alex, for being on the show. And I hope you enjoyed yourself on Behind Company Lines today.